Hey everybody, this is Robert Burke. I'd like to welcome you to episode number 6 of When to Play. In episode 6, we are going to be talking about a game that had been out for a while, then was out of print, and then it was just brought back via a Kickstarter by Pandasaurus Games, and it is called Tammany Hall. So, oh my goodness, what to say about Tammany Hall? I'll tell you, you'll have an overwhelming urge to take a long shower after playing this game because it will make you feel dirty. I feel physically ashamed after every session with this game, but I cannot stop running back to this floozy. Make no mistake, this game is a scummy 2-bit harlot, a game that was forged in the blackened bowels of Satan himself. But seriously, if you are somebody who does not enjoy direct conflict in your board games, and I mean serious direct conflict, then you will not like this game. You should avoid Tammany Hall. If you do like direct conflict, and lots of it, then this is a game that you really have to have in your collection. I don't think I've played a game that has as much direct conflict in it as Tammany Hall. It's an area control game at its core, but the theme is really great. If you've ever seen Gangs of New York with Daniel Day-Lewis, this is the cardboard equivalent of that game. Backstabbing and blood and foul language and all. So, in the game, and this was released by Pandasaurus Games, by the way. This was a game that was out of print, had a good following, and Pandasaurus Games brought it back, did a Kickstarter, raised a ton of money for it. So there's obviously a lot of people who love this game. And have put it back out into the market. Now the Kickstarter, because it raised so much money, they really put a lot into the components, and the components are beautiful. The box is nice and thick. It's linen covered. There is a beautiful cloth bag embroidered with the name Tammany Hall. It's like velvet or something. Feels like velvet anyway. And this is where you are going to put your immigrant cubes. These are immigrant cubes. Green are the Irish. Now you have to understand, Tammany Hall takes place in the mid-19th centuries, the middle 1800s, right? So you are trying to control politically different immigrant populations that are coming into the country to gain control of different wards in New York City. So you are doing that by placing ward bosses on the board, and you're placing immigrant cubes. You're taking immigrants off the boat and you're settling them in neighborhoods, and you're trying to gain political influence in the different immigrant populations so that you can win elections. So every turn is a year, and at the end of each 4-year term, there's an election where players score points and can gain more influence to become more powerful. So with that being said, there can be a runaway leader problem with Tammany Hall, but when you've played it a couple times and you're playing this game with people who know the game a little bit even, then that runaway leader problem goes away, because people will gang up on the leader, because if you don't, they're going to win the game, right? Because if they start getting influence even with 1 or 2 different immigrant populations, and they're collecting influence chips, and it can kind of build on itself, and they can run away with the game. So people tend to try and stop that and gang up on the leader if they get too far ahead. And that's something you really have to do in this game. So if that's something that you dislike, if you don't like that in a game, that runaway leader kind of problem that can happen, then this isn't a game for you. For me, it makes sense, right? Because I think that even fits the theme, because if you've got a political entity who gets a lot of support, it can snowball, right? It really can snowball. It's like where I'm from in Charleston, South Carolina. The mayor there, Mayor Joel Riley, has been mayor there for decades and decades and decades and decades, right? He's well ingrained. The people know him. They love him. And he's going to win every election if he chooses to run. So that's the way it is. But with that being said, if people do gang up on the leader, you can stop that. And it can be a very close game if people play it right. But anyway, in the game, you've got orange cubes. These represent German immigrants. You've got white cubes. These represent British immigrants. You've got green cubes. These represent Irish immigrants. And you've got blue cubes that represent Italian immigrants. So one thing about this game is if you can speak with foreign accents, Italian and British or Irish, Italian, if you can German, if you can speak, if you've got players who have good accents, the game can be really hilarious. You know, you're opening and you're going into the Italians are going into a new hit neighborhood, and you're kind of joking about I'm opening a pizza parlor and leave me alone, and you know, so there's a lot of opportunity here for player interaction because of the theme, which is a very good thing in my opinion. So let me show you the board. The board is beautiful, and they did upgrade the board with the Kickstarter campaign. They made it better. They made the graphics better. They made it stand out. It's a map of New York City, and it's as you can see, it's a huge board, and it's separated into different wards in the city. 3 sections, different wards, and it's got all the information that you need. How to seed. It shows you how to seed the different boroughs at the beginning of the game. It has a track here. Whoever wins the wards that contains the most in combination of different immigrant cubes is going to gain 3 influence with that immigrant population, the 4 different immigrant populations. You track that there. It's got city offices that players hold on this side. It tells you that. It even has a scoring summary, all the scoring that you need to do, and turns, and it's got all the rules right on the board. So you don't even really need to refer to the rule book, although there will be times where certain things come up when you have a tie or something like that where you'll have to go to the rule book. So you do have to refer to the rule book, but really the mechanics of the game are simple. They're not that difficult. There's not that many rules. And it's not that long of a game either. You're only taking, it's 4 terms, 4 years, so it's 16 rounds, and they go pretty quick. The first round goes really quick. So let me tell you how this works. So you are going to place, on your turn, you've got an option. You can place 2 of your ward bosses, which are the little meeples. You can place 2 ward bosses on any combination of wards on the map that you want. And that gives you 1 point of influence in that ward, every ward boss that you have. So I could place 2 ward bosses in the tip of Manhattan, or I could place 1 in Manhattan and 1 in the Bronx if I want. Or my other option is I could place 1 ward boss one place, and then I could take an immigrant cube off of the Castle Garden, which I guess is like Ellis Island, right? You take 1 immigrant population cube and put it anywhere on the map that you want, and then you get an influence marker. Like here are the Italian influence markers. They are little, just wooden discs. Now this edition came with stickers of the different flags of the different nationalities, the different countries at that time, and I think that was a really great idea, and I think it was like a Kickstarter stretch goal, but they wear down, these stickers wear down really quick. I mean, after 1 or 2 plays, you'll start seeing the wear on these stickers, and they're not gonna last long. And it's a lot, and they come on a sheet, so you got to spend a lot of time putting these stickers on the disc. So if you do get Tammany Hall, it's cool if you want to do that, but just know that the stickers aren't going to last long. It's a lot of effort for something that's not going to last long if you actually play the game a lot. Other than that, the components are gorgeous. Everything, I mean, it's wooden discs. The box is really high quality. The office cards are really nice, thick cards. And I'll talk about those in just a second. But anyway, after so what's happening on the map is you're placing your ward bosses out. And sometimes you're competing for wards, and sometimes you get lucky and can get a ward all to yourself. Every ward you win during an election is going to be worth a victory point. except for Tammany Hall. Tammany Hall is the seat of power, kind of in the middle of the board. If you win that during election, you get 2 points. There are a few wards along the waterfront, too, that will give you, if you win it, you get an extra cube, immigrant population cube, or you'll get an extra influence token. The influence tokens, again, you can gain these by placing an immigrant. You'll get an influence token of the same color. Or you can win, if you win at the end of election, if you control the wards that contain the most immigrant cubes of a certain color, you will get 3 influence, which is huge because these influence cubes will help you win, these discs will help you win elections. So, for example, let's say I'm in Manhattan and there's another player in Manhattan. And let's say there are Italians and Germans in Manhattan at that point in time. I have 1 ward boss. My opponent has 1 ward boss. That is a 1-to-1. So if we did not bid any of our influence, we would both lose. They would both go away. Nobody would win that ward. All right. So nobody gets a point for it or a benefit for it. However, if I've got 4 German influence, which are again the discs that I've collected, right, by placing immigrant cubes or having the most orange immigrant cubes at the end of an election cycle, I can bid those 4. Now I've got 4, right, plus my ward boss is 5, 5-to-1 now. I win the election, I get the point, I kick him out, I stay in that ward. So it's this kind of thing. You're putting your hand out, you're saying 1, 2, 3 and turning and showing each other how much influence you're going to burn to try and win that election. Whoever has the most most points, the most influence points, wins that ward. So some people don't like that mechanic. They don't like that blind bidding. It makes them feel, they just don't like it. I play with people who really hate it, but I like it. I mean, even when I get burnt, that's what makes it good, right? Because when you get burnt, it's horrible. Like if you put in 4 influence, right, and they put in 1 more and they win, you still have to throw away the influence that you used in that election. So you can, and these are rare. I mean, getting these influence is hard to do. So if you're going up against somebody with a lot of Irish influence and you've got no Irish influence and you're competing and he's in a ward or she's in a ward that has just Irish in it, then you don't want to go there. You don't want to attack that person because they have all the influence to win during the election. So you're trying to make sure people don't get too powerful. You're trying to collect as much influence as you can to win these elections. But at the same time, you've got to burn your influence, but you've got to preserve it too. You've got to think strategically for the whole game. You've got to have enough influence to protect your districts to stay competitive. And I got to tell you, I played this game probably 5 or 6 times now. I have not won it yet. I've been close, but I have not won it. And it drives me crazy. But there is a lot of strategy here because you're trying to control the wards for the points, but you're also trying to control the most immigrant cubes to get the influence markers so that you can get points later. So there's a couple layers that you need to think about strategically. And there's so many wards touching each other, and there's, depending on how many players are playing, there's no way you can avoid conflict. I mean, this is not a game of diplomacy, right? It may sound like it is, but it's not. You cannot make an alliance in this game and hold your word for even 1 year. You have got to attack. You have got to not worry about people's feelings. If your feelings are hurt easily, this is not a game you should play. If you are prone to, rage quits, if you're prone to flipping the table, if you have a hard time controlling your anger when you get hosed, stay away from this game. This game will make you kill your dog. I'm serious. It is a hardcore conflict game. It's not something you should be getting into if you have anger management problems. All right. But if you like that kind of thing, if you like direct conflict that is layered with some serious area control strategy, this is a game that you really have to play. I totally understand why so many people love this game. Now, The next thing about this game are these offices, which pump the game up another level. So whoever wins at the end of election, wins the most districts on the map, is going to become the mayor. And here is, where's the mayor? Here's the mayor, right? That's the mayor card. You get this card, you get 3 points for being the mayor. You also get to hand out these other 4 offices, right? So you can play up to 5 players. But the mayor gets to determine who gets what office. And each office is good. Every office has a special ability. Some people believe some are better than others. I think there's a couple that I like more than others, but let me just tell you what they are. So if you give out the deputy mayor, that player is going to get a free influence chip of any color that they want every turn. So they'll get 4 influence chips during that term before the next election. So that's a pretty good one. You're basically giving somebody 4 influence chips. So when you're mayor, you tend to give this one to somebody who's least likely to attack you that next term, right? Because they're going to have 4 extra influence to do elections with. The council president can lock up 2 districts. So there are some little, where are they? Here they are. There's some little gray cylinders here. So what this does, if you already own a district and nobody's in there with you yet, you can place that gray cylinder on the region that you control, and it's locked up. Nobody can go in or out of there. So you've ensured that you are going to win that district in the next election. You only have 2 of those cylinders, though. So basically, this will let that player lock down 2 districts. Nobody can come in or out. You're going to get 2 points for sure because you're definitely going to win 2 districts. Then we have the precinct chairman. This one is probably my favorite. This lets you move 1 immigrant cube from 1 ward to any adjacent ward. So remember, in this game, you are trying to gain influence chips to help you win elections. All right? So if you have the most cubes, if you control the most cubes, you're going to get 3 extra at the end of the election. So if I have an area that I pretty much have locked down with points, and I'm trying to gain the most Italian immigrants so I can get 3 more blue influence chips at the end of the election, I'm going to be moving every blue cube adjacent to that ward that I have control over into the ward that I own, right? Because that's going to increase the number of immigrant cubes I have, and it's going to increase my chances that I'm going to get these 3 influence chips. And you can also do things with this one, like if I'm going to attack another player. Let's say I have a ton of blue influence, and in the ward there's a blue cube and there is a green cube. All right. Let's say that I place 1 in there to challenge that ward, but the player I'm challenging only has green cubes, doesn't have, or green influence chips, and doesn't have any blue influence chips. I'm going to move the green cube out of there, right? So now there's only a blue cube there. So now I can use my Italian influence chips, but they can't use their green. So that card has a couple different ways you can use it that are very beneficial. The last one is Chief of Police. This just lets you arrest 1 immigrant cube every turn. You just take it off the board. So again, that's where you can hose somebody. They really need that German influence to successfully defend a ward that they own. You take that 1 German out of there, and now they can't use any of their German influence, right? So these really increase the level of the game, in my opinion, and are a great addition. But you know what? That's not all. This game gets even dirtier. It gets even more horrible because there are slander chips in this game. The slander chips are black. And you get 3 of these. Every player gets 3 slander chips, and you can only slander once per turn and only in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th terms. Now, a slander chip, what this does is it lets you you can attack 1 player with it. You're going to slander a player. So I'm going to put this slander chip down on a ward that I share with another player, and I'm going to spend an influence. The influence has to match the color of any of the immigrants that are in that ward. I'm going to spend an influence chip, slander that player, I can remove that player. So you can basically take over a ward completely and kick them out by slandering them. Further, you can attack that player in an adjacent ward by spending 2 more influence chips. It's got to be the same color though, and kick that player out of an adjacent ward. So you can effectively take over, if you play it right, you can take over 2 wards by spending a slander chip. But the slander chips that you don't spend are worth 3 points at the end of the game. Now the game we played yesterday, a player won because they did not spend any slander. But that's the first time I've seen that. Usually people like to spend their slander because it can really position you better, even at the cost of that victory point. And you get so caught up in how evil this game is that it's something that you're chomping at the bit to do, to slander people. So that's Tammany Hall in a nutshell. So if you're a casual gamer, no, this is not a game that you want to play. The strategy, like I said, the mechanics are easy, but how the mechanics layer on top of each other takes some time to sink in. There's definitely a lot of strategy there. You have to be very tactical in this game. You know, you have to take your best move every time it's your turn. But you also have to think strategically. You have to think into the future. Because you want to make sure that you're in a position at the end of each term to get these influence chips. Because if you're not getting these, then you can't compete for the wards, right? I think I've already mentioned that there can be a follow the leader problem with this, so you need players who understand that to make the game good and competitive. If you have one player who's experienced with this game and the others are not, then that player is going to win, right? So it's not fun in those situations. So I would recommend that if you're playing this with new people, explain that to them. Be honest. Say, look, if somebody gets ahead, even if it's me, you've got to attack me or they can run away with the game. So that is an issue with the game. But if you have players who understand that, the game is incredible. But again, if you don't like direct conflict, stay away from this game. You're going to hate it. If you're a war gamer, you may like this. If you're a historical gamer, you're going to like this game because it really does. I mean, it's like I said, it's like the cardboard version of Gangs of New York. It was real historic event. Tammany Hall was a real thing, right, where the immigrant populations were vying for political control, and you really get a sense of this in the game. I mean, you've got the different boroughs. The map is beautiful. The graphic design is really, looks like it's from that era. You got the different colors with the flags on them and your ward bosses, and you're moving immigrants from one ward to another, and you're putting your ward bosses in to try to gain control, and then you're attacking and kicking and having elections and trying to win wards, and you're slandering other politicians to get control of a ward. So it really has that underground political feeling, that direct conflict. It's a constant tension. You're constantly trying to analyze what your best move is. At the same time, you're constantly worried about who's going to attack me. Can I actually defend that ward? Oh my goodness, if they attack me there, I'm in trouble because they've got a ton of German influence and I have none. So can I get that German population out of there? I really want that ward for whatever reason. So there is a lot of great analysis in the game. There is a lot of tension in the game. So that's a plus or minus depending on the kind of gamer you are. And another benefit here is it's not an overly long game. It's just about right. It's in the sweet spot. It's 16 turns. It's 4 terms. Analysis paralysis can slow the game down, and you can have that here because there's a lot of things to think about. There's so many times, even me, and I'm not really prone to AP, but in this game it can get me. So the game can be slowed down by that because sometimes you're looking, you're just like, oh God, I hate this game. But you don't hate it. I say I hate it, but I love it. I mean, it's what gaming is about, to create those situations and to make you really feel tension or feel the kinds of things this game makes you feel. They're not necessarily good feelings, but any game that can make you feel something is a good game. So If you like direct conflict, if you like simple mechanics and deep strategy, then Tammany Hall is gonna be a good game for you. If you have anger management problems, please stay away from this game. It can ruin your life. You could end up in jail. All right, I'm serious. Stay away from it. It's bad for you. If you have an anger management problem, this game is bad for you. Stay away. All right. I hope this helped you. I hope the review gave you a sense of what kind of game Tammany Hall is, and if it's right for you. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with episode 7 soon.